So this is part 3 of the maintenance video of Janus, and what I'd like to talk about is the script system that I've implemented to replace the module system of Janus. And the script system is basically executing external scripts on a particular render pass. Now there's pretty much some documentation on creating scripts if you wish to create them, but what I've done, I've used the system in order to quickly create some external utilities that are useful when using it with Janus. For example, I have 3 ones that I'm shipping out, and one of them is sending the render layers image sequences into Photoshop, After Effects, and rendering the render pass using mode 3 locally, sort of like a quick way to get renders out instead of, very convenient because it's right in the interface and you don't have to load it into render queue or into a render farm. What I'd like to demonstrate for you right now is the send to Photoshop. Janus already has a send export to Photoshop feature, and that's located in the test render and down here. This is still valid, you can still use this, but this is also an old version, especially for people who are coming into wanting to use the Photoshop feature. This method uses an older setup and requires a number of steps in order to make it work with Photoshop, whereas the new way is actually more direct. The only thing you have to do is go to the preferences and kind of point out where the external applications are. In this case, you have a choice here: After Effects, Photoshop, and just make sure that the application path is correct and you'll be set to go. So let me demonstrate how this works. I'm gonna go and export all of these guys out into a Photoshop document. So I'm gonna go and select all those, select Send to Photoshop, and tell me whether I want to export the buffers. I've rendered buffers out, but what I'm going to do is just not export them now so that it's clear to see. So click OK. It gave me this error: some or all files were not located. Check file existence and current frame number. So it's a pretty so the reason for that is that it happens to me all the time because I've put my frame number in 0, and most of the time I render out starting with frame 1 or higher than 0. So you have to make sure that you have a valid frame number when you're exporting from. So here I put the frame 40, and I will try to I will export that. But before I do, I've set something up here previously that I just want to get back. So I'm going to just put this to pass name. I'll explain this a little bit later. So I'm going to go and send to Photoshop, and I'm not going to export buffers. So now my Photoshop is off screen. Okay, so this is my document, my PSD file, and here are the layers there. So as you can see, it's all arranged according to the way I selected it in Janus. There are 2 particular subcommands you'd probably like to be aware of, and this relates to the export of these image sequences or images into Photoshop or After Effects. One is called layer name, and what it does actually is change the layer name as it's being exported, so you don't have to use you can use anything you want. In this case, I've checked this thing as a global setting, and it applied the pass name, which is kind of logical, onto the name. And so you have the layer names like these. But say you can change this with anything you want. Let's just say previously I had it to notes to demonstrate, and the notes, for example, my notes is character, prop, and set, and so those are like aliases. And when I export that thing again, you'll see that they've changed like that. Note also, if for example, if you export something, like if you export another character layer or a layer name that already exists, Janus is going to replace that layer name or that layer with that newly imported one. So you have to be aware of of your layer names, because that's what Janus uses. That's what Janus uses to replace or to append a layer. The next particular subcommand you'd like to be aware of is blend mode. Blend mode is a blending mode, and you can control on a per layer basis how many, what kind of blending mode you like to apply. In this case, for example, I'd like to put a blending mode of multiply on that particular thing, so that if I export this again, you will see that back here, the spheres, more specifically the I think it's the prop, yeah, become multiply. So you can control the default blending mode of that layer using subcommands. They work in the same manner as any subcommand. Looks like my thing crashed. Pause. Okay, I'm back, and the next thing I want to get at is the send to After Effects. Send to After Effects is essentially the same thing. There are no particular differences, except that, well, you need to get After Effects up and running before you can use this, because if After Effects is closed, it seems like the script is the timing is all off, and needless to say, you need to get After Effects running first, and I have it actually running on the background on the other screen at the moment. I'm going to use the Send to After Effects to export all of these guys out. So I'm going to Send to After Effects, and it gives me this dialog. Now this time I'm going to export the buffers that I've already rendered. I'm going to you can choose between these three, and what the append to comp with same name basically looks for a comp if with this name, for example your scene name, and if it finds it, it will use that comp in order to place all the images into. If it's append to active comp, it will ignore the name, but it will just look at the active comp if you have anything basically up at the moment. And you can always create a new comp when you check this one, and every time you submit or you export, a comp will be made. I tend to use this most of the time because obviously it's more predictable. So I'm going to export the buffers, click OK, and so now it's exporting, and this is how it looks. I'm going to double click on the setup DBX4, and as you can see, these are my layers. My ground's normal pass, which is nothing much. My normal pass for DBX, the character, you know, and so on and so forth. Okay. This third one is actually a kind of a convenient way to render off render passes if you'd like. I often like to render locally, and this will actually will render out the selected passes, and you don't have to load it up into render queue or anything like that. You can also add or remove scripts. This is just a dummy script that I've made to test out some stuff. Yeah, if you have, like, for example, a script that you want to use for submission of breakout passes, you can put it here, and then you can just apply it just like your post breakout script. You can do whatever you want, but if you want to learn more about it, there's a lot of information and documentation regarding the details or the data you can use coming from Janus, so that you can feed it into your script to do whatever you want it to do.